Kiana Sears.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so pleased to be here. And when you talk about coming out and turning out and having candidates do that, do know that as a candidate, I am very happy and honored to go wherever I'm asked, wherever I'm pleased. I've actually been down to Green County, I've been to Yuma, I've been to Bisbee, I've been to La Paz County that just put together their area and their county chair, so they actually reorganize. So whether it's one person or 1,000 people, I'm always happy to actually come out. Again, my name's Kiana Sears and I'm running for the Arizona Corporation Commission. I am a former employee of the Arizona Corporation Commission. So while I was there, what I did was regulate water and wastewater and actually wrote solar policy. So when solar cases came, I was the first one to actually, as staff, to actually write that solar language that is still being used at the Arizona Corporation Commission. I stand before you today telling you that Arizona has given me a lot. And one of my favorite things and my favorite scriptures that I use in life is to whom much is given, much is required. That's why I stand here before you today. I've been afforded tremendous opportunity in Arizona, and I hate to see opportunity being stolen from future generations and for people who are currently in Arizona, because we can do much better when it comes to renewables, solar, and just our energy rates. My hot button is reducing energy rates for us, the ratepayers here in Arizona. And that's one thing that I will never take back, that every single day at the Corporation Commission when I'm elected, if I get the honor to serve because of your vote in August, I will fight for the ratepayers. That's why I'm here, that's why I work so hard. I qualified for the ballot in February of this year, being the second candidate in the state to do so. I turned in 1,800 individual $5 contributions, which means I'm a clean elections candidate because I won't take any bribes. I will stand up and have the honesty and integrity that I not only talk about, but live. That's why I decided to run clean, because this year, honestly, there's so many female supporting organizations that it's a good year to get money from organizations that's willing to give. Because in this climate, people have come out of the woodwork to donate money, but it was important to me to stand up before you and say, I'm a clean elections candidate. So I qualified with the help of Arizonans all around the state and went where I needed to go to get those votes. So I've driven excess of 32,000 miles to make that happen. I know that kind of by the getting new brakes and also getting the different oil changes. So what's important to me, not just the rates, not just our future, but clean energy. One of the things that I didn't talk about as I talked to some of you in the room today is I also sit on the board of the American Lung Force here in Arizona. It's called, our particular lung association chapter brands itself differently, and every fundraiser that we do, we call Lung Force. My youngest daughter is an asthma sufferer, as is myself, but I've seen her struggle to breathe. That's another reason why clean air is important to me. So I talk about honesty, transparency, and integrity at the Corporation Commission, but my tagline for my campaign starts with clean policy, clean energy, and cleaning things up. So thank you so much for having me, coming out, and when you invite people out, the main thing that you should tell them is we're going to listen to and join in the fight to stand up for Arizonans. Because that's what all of this is about, no matter what office it is, it's about our voices being heard. I'm a community advocate as well. I serve in Mesa Public Schools, so I've done many things in nonprofits, but in the year 2016, I ran for the Mesa Governing Board. I'm the first person of color ever elected in Mesa when it comes to the Mesa Governing Board. So there hadn't been a Latina, there had never been a Native person, there hadn't been a Black person that have served on the Mesa School Board. Why that matters, Mesa is the largest school district in our state. We serve 70,000 children, and we're also the largest minority school district in our state. Most people, when they think about where I live, which is Mesa, they think of it being more white and more Mormon, but actually minorities are the majority in our system. So it's time that we start making sure that all voices are heard and represented. So that's a little bit about who I am and why I come to the table. I have two daughters that I'm very proud of. They're 21 and 24. My 24-year-old is running for West Mesa Justice of the Peace, and she decided to make that courageous step at 24 years old because Mesa was the first city and the first municipality in our state to vote in favor of for-profit prisons. And that broke my daughter's heart. She talks a lot because she is a teacher. She talks a lot every day about education instead of incarceration and what we need to do to help children in our society and young adults who are experiencing adverse childhood experiences and traumas. We need to do more education. And with our state being where it is when it comes to education, again, that's why I bring my story to you. Because it's time that we lower energy bills, especially August and September. That's when every student in our state starts school, whether it's K through 12 or college. And we shouldn't, and hardworking families or students shouldn't have to decide between paying the AC bill and actually buying the things that are necessary for school. So with those two things, in this climate where everything is going opposite of what we want to do, I got in this race because I know I have the grit to make this happen. But most of all, I've been very successful at getting the support of people around me and changing the hearts and minds of people who may be on the opposite side of our thought process. So yes, I'm a proud Democrat, love being a Democrat, but I talk to a lot of Republicans and I talk to a lot of independents, which is a huge part of where I live and the majority of people where I live, because I know there's some things that we agree on, and we should make those things rise to the top instead of the division we're currently experiencing. So, water, very passionate about it. Clean energy, very passionate about it, and I have the professional experience. I talked about formerly working for the Corporation Commission, and that work involved seeing every application for private water utility companies that would be regulated in our state. Almost said my state, our state. As with the state of Arizona, when you, at the Corporation Commission, you get this application, a staffer as myself would get that application, look at the fitness of the company, the ability for the company owner to actually operate and serve, actually go out to where the physical place would be, talk to the owner, and actually assemble a team. So I would talk to a hydrologist, an engineer, and consultant that would look at the rates that they wanted to propose and actually take all of this, and I would actually prepare what's called a staff report and be the expert person who does all the testimony when it comes to whether in favor or against that company becoming a company here in the state of Arizona. That's one of the powers that exists at the Arizona Corporation Commission. A lot of the entities that's coming through and getting power in Arizona, especially when it comes to water, we have to have someone there who's gonna vote against companies that want to do water farming. And the commissioners have the opportunity to do that. And because what I've done in the past is impose performance bonds that were really high when it comes to water companies to deter water companies coming in and charging us absorbent rates when it comes to water regulation. So when it comes to energy and solar and securities and all of those things, because I made this my job, my career, I'm aware of all of those things too, but I'm definitely passionate about water, solar, and renewable energy. Because the security division exists at the Corporation Commission as well. So some people call it the mini SEC, because most people don't realize your Attorney General's office gets the complaint, but it's the Arizona Corporation Commissioner that serve as judge and jury when you're defrauded when it comes to securities here in our state. That's why it's the fourth branch of our government, because it handles that instead of the Attorney Generals. Every other state, it's the Attorney General's office. But there's one thing that I know no other candidate talks about, because when I was at the Corporation Commission, I thought about it day in and day out. And that's when you're late as a business owner, because one of the things you do at the Arizona Corporation Commission, you can go become a business owner and actually get your paperwork expedited, or you can do it, but you also have to do an end of the year annual report. A large percentage of people file those late. And when you do, you're assessed a fine. And those fines adds up to millions of dollars. Our corporation commissioners, you get to decide where that money is spent. I want that money to go into the arts for our children in Arizona. Most people thought I would say education, but I refuse, and I wouldn't send a dime to our legislators because I know our children wouldn't get the money. But our arts affects the lives of children no matter what their ability is, or any skill level, so that's where I would want that money to go, because it makes a difference when you invest in the arts here in Arizona. So it sounds like maybe a side note, but I'm for Arizona, the future of Arizona, whether it be little ones, people who are my age, all Arizonans, because all of us and all of our skills that we bring to the table here in Arizona, coming from many different places, is what makes Arizona so great and which drives us forward. So I ask you to help me get through the primary. I think I've proven that I'm able to work hard and get on the ballot and get my voice heard. And the other thing that I'm very proud of is the companies and the organizations that have endorsed me, starting with Arizona List, one of our pro-women democratic organizations, the National Association of Women, Emily's List, and the American Teachers Federation. Those are some of my leading endorsements, and why those first? Because there's always with politics a little bit of scandal and some things that are not so positive when it comes to what candidates say about each other. But one thing I can tell you about women organizations, they get into the details. They ask you every single thing. They turn angles, they look at things, and that's why I tell people, if you ever want to know things when you're looking at your ballots, one of the best places to go is the League of Women Voters. They're the only organization that gives detail on every single judge on the ballot. And we know in the presidential year, the back of your ballot is full of many judges. But the League of Women Voters is the only organization that looks in every details. So with that, I want to tell you that I'm here to serve you, to work for you, to help you lower your rates, and to make our state lead when it comes to solar and renewable energy. That's one of the ways we not only reduce our rates, but bring great jobs to Arizona. Because we have so much infrastructure and things to do that we get our unions, workers working, we get HVAC training going, we get more people out who actually have the skills in HVAC, so we stimulate our economy and we have jobs that are not just call center jobs. So I believe clean energy does so much more for our state than we could ever imagine. So that's one of the reasons why I'm running, that's why I'm here today. And I would love to take questions, because I always love to hear from you and share who I am. And then one thing I want to have tell everyone and leave open to everyone, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Usually, I put my phone on vibrate right now or pause, but usually that's when I answer questions, because I always want to be someone who's available to you. And I love talking on the phone because I'm not really a texter, but I do have people answer texts and all those things for me.
Questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you talk a little bit about solar power, what's going on with solar in our state, and why we're not doing better with solar in our state?
So the question is about solar energy. What's going on with solar energy and why we're not doing better with solar, when everyone in this room would say that it just makes sense and that we should be the solar capital of the world. What's going on with solar, and the reason why it's not proliferating, is because our commissioners have ruled in favor of making sure that corporations and the money that they earn is a higher priority than solar and getting solar to flourish. So when it comes down to it, solar energy is here to stay. It will grow in Arizona, but right now there's a fight between residential and actually corporate interests. Corporations, always, mind you, they're in business to make a profit, always want to make more money. So if there's a way to hold us back as the consumers from continuing to have an opportunity to lower rates and have them make less money, that's where we are. So it's a fight about the end game, which is money. So when you see the attack on solar, or excess fees charged on solar, or just the incentives being taken away, it's about our corporations earning more money and more of our money, rather than us saving and pocketing more money. And the last thing I want to talk about is the whole net metering when it comes to it. At one point when I first got to the Corporation Commission, net metering was how solar was being handled, which means when you put energy into the grid, when you need energy, you can buy it, and the rates are being more the same. So the best way to simplify it, currently if you have solar, and you deposit, let's just say I'll just say kilowatts. I'm just gonna say it rather than going to all the language. So say each kilowatt you get 10 cents. So you put 10 kilowatts in, that means you would get $1. And when you go to do the buyback, the buyback now is costing you $1 per kilowatt. So hence, you won't earn money, you'll still be paying. Everybody follow the math of what I was just doing? Okay, so imagine that each kilowatt that you put in, like you have excess energy, you have more energy.
Right.
So you put it in, and so you put, each kilowatt was like 10 cents.
Mhm.
So you put 10 kilowatts in, so that's $1.
Right.
When you need energy from the company, and you now want those kilowatts back, you want the 10 back, you now have to pay $1 for every kilowatt that you're getting back. So now you have to pay that, so you're paying 10 times more to actually get it back. So hence you're not earning money. Or at one time, if you put them on the same scale, you would either even out, or if you didn't have to buy back as much, you actually earned money. You got a check. So that's where the fees come in, that's where the surcharges come in, to balance that and make sure that the energy company is retaining more money and that the consumer is not benefiting. So then what happens, the consumers start looking at the costs and no longer cost benefits and say, well, I probably shouldn't get solar. And then in the meantime, corporations are putting more solar panels out to capture the solar market. That's what I believe is fundamentally what's going on and why we don't have more solar. Because it's about who gets to earn money versus us getting to save money. Yes, ma'am.
You know, when you were talking about your job at
Yes.
the Corporation Commission, it sounded like that was pretty high level. You were screening corporations and doing that. If you were doing that kind of work, what were the commissioners doing?
So the question is, if with me being an executive consultant, doing the screening, doing the research, looking at the companies, doing all that, what do the commissioners actually do? The commissioners vote on the expert advice given by the executive consultants. So in my role, basically, it is doing just that, weighing all the information, knowing the federal regulations, going to what's called the ARS, the Arizona Revised Statute, going to the water rules, knowing all of that, and actually writing it in a staff report for the commissioners, delivering that to them, as well as what's called a fact sheet, a summary of that, because they may not read the actual staff report that I've created, and doing I guess a cliff notes of what the recommendations are. They get to make the final decision. That's who I'm running. Because time after time again, I make these recommendations in favor of us and in favor of lower rates, and the commissioners decided against staffs, because that's, as staff, you can never make the final decision. You make the recommendation to the corporation commissioners, and then they decide. Like when we talk about the last APS rate, the person who's now the executive consultant over water and wastewater, and you have another one over energy, made staff recommendation. That was their final thing. We have a judge that also, the administrative law judge, takes the recommendation of the staffer and actually filters it up to the commissioners as well. But they get to decide in the face of all the evidence and professional recommendations. Our commissioners continue to decide against us, the public consumers, and what's in our best interest.
There you go. Well, on these same lines, I mean, I know the names of some of the Republicans on the Corporation Commission, and as far as I know, they do not have the same degree of expertise that you have.
He asked about the expertise of the commissioners that's on the commission. I am an anomaly, and I hardly ever say it. Most people who serve on the Corporation Commission and have over the years do not come to the Corporation Commission and run for the office having a utility background. Most of our current Corporation Commissioners, who we have right now and who we've had in the past, come from terming out of the legislature. I don't know if you're aware, our legislature, only the salary for the legislators are $24,000. Well, now with some incentives, some of them, it's from $24,000 to $27,000. So it's a very lower salary. So what they do is they term out of the legislature, and then they come over to the Corporation Commission. So they have no experience when it comes to utilities. And how utility experience is garnered by people who've been on the Corporation Commission is they've been there and they've experienced it. So I am the first candidate to ever have worked at the Corporation Commission, have worked at the Corporation Commission and have a utility background and actually gotten certified when it comes to water, wastewater, gas. So currently, and that's what really bothered me about Doug Little when he was appointed by the occupant of the White House. He has no utility experience. Didn't, even when he served at the Corporation Commission, didn't even avail himself to educational opportunities that's offered. And now he's the highest ranking energy person in our nation because the occupant of the White House tapped him from our Arizona Corporation Commission. So it's a very powerful place to be because we're a huge state, a rising state, a progressive state, so we have a lot of attention. So for the occupant to actually come here and pick one of our commissioners, that shows you how important the Arizona Corporation Commission is.
A follow-up if I can.
We talked about this.
I should know this, but who are the likely Republican candidates for these slots?
This one is super interesting because it just changed the other day. But the people who were running that were the leading were the person who I would say poses us as Democrats the biggest challenge. I'll start with Rodney Glassman.
Right.
Because Rodney is a former.
City council member in Tucson.
Yes. So he's been, at a time, he was on our team. So that means he knows we don't have any money. And so when I look at all the shenanigans that we sometimes as Democrats do to each other while we're running in primary, we don't have the room for it. That's why I believe I always do everything I can to do the high road, because Rodney sent a message loud and clear, and I found it to be smart, and I just hated that I found it to be smart, that he sent me a message as soon as he filed, because he saw I was a contender, and he let me know that he filed his first week for $250,000. That amount is significant and important to a clean elections candidate, because it is almost the entire amount that clean elections candidate will have for their entire race for the Arizona Corporation Commission. And he filed that in the first week of his filing to let us know that he's gonna garner a ton of money in this election. Then there's Brenda Barton. Geez, the one thing I could say about her is when President Obama ran, she was more likely to make comments that, even being a person who is an anti-defamation person, that's why I'm not gonna repeat what she says, because I do a lot of work with the Anti-Defamation League, but she made it like anti-Semitic innuendos when it came to President Obama. So we definitely don't want her in doing the things, because basically that gives you an idea who she compared President Obama to. That's what she did. So I definitely, she's someone that we as a whole party should work very hard to make sure that she's not elected to not just a corporation commission, but anything. But as of last week, Tom Friese decided that he was back. He put out all his treasurer signs 2 weeks before,
Yeah.
and now he's back running for the Arizona Corporation Commission.
Really?
That happened, yeah. And in my area, the person who occupies Doug's Little seats when the occupant of the White House decided to have Doug Little go up is Justin Osen. So Justin Osen formerly was a legislator, and but I don't know if it's like being a serious contender. I don't know if that's going to happen. But definitely, Rodney's adamant about doing it. Because there was some things that happened in the Democratic Party. So, and now he's crossed the line, and there he is. Yes, ma'am.
When you were at ACC, did you report to someone? Who was that?
My direct report when I was at the Arizona Corporation Commission was Steve Olea. He was over all of utilities. So what happens is my utility director, it was the utility director, then the commissioners.
Okay.
That's kind of how, so Steve Olea has since retired. And that was, that helped me make my decision when I was resigning, because basically I had saw the demise of the Corporation Commission, and I wanted to do my part in cleaning up, and I definitely couldn't do it from the inside out as a staffer, because obviously we were already being ignored when it comes to recommendations. So that's who I reported to, because the Corporation Commission has different divisions. So you have the utilities, you have the securities, you have the corps, where you actually file all your LLC paperwork, the nonprofit. You have the consumer services division, which people often forget about. That's where you actually can complain about what's happening. And also that particular division can also be advocacy for us. And that's what I want to see happen with that division. Like currently, time of use plans are advertised in the winter. So most middle-class families look at them and we can do them, and wealthier people look at it and do it. But families that struggle are not looking at time of use plans in the winter. I will fight that time of use plans and everything that lower utility bills be advertised in the summer while in crisis. Families that live from day to day need those things addressed in the midst of crisis, because they're living day to day. Yes,
That
ma'am.
should go out with their bill every month, rather than being on the web.
I'll take that suggestion. Like I said, once I'm elected, I will be that one. You can call me. I won't just have staffers. Every chance I get, I'll be on the phone. I'll have those office phone hours to go and work with our consumer service division. Being someone who's worked in nonprofits for many years, one of the things I did was I worked with Valley of the Sun United Way, and I worked on the weekend hunger backpacks. Kids who are food insecure over the weekend, but they can bring food home on the weekend to carry them through Monday when they get their meals. So I've done that work, and I want families to do better. Because again, I was that teenage mom going to ASU, finding a way, making it a way, and there were many programs that helped me to be able to do that. So I want anyone and everyone in Arizona to be able to live their best life. Yes, ma'am.
You kind of alluded to your position title as executive consultant.
Mhm.
Were you salaried or were you a consultant?
I was salaried, but the actual title is that. It's a very long title. It's executive consultant of water and wastewater public utility analyst. That's the entire title that they had. So we in government, you always have all these levels of things.
Yeah.
And when you get to executive consultant, why they do that is there's people who work in the utility bill area who may be working on wastewater, but why they say consultant, because you're the one that actually that performs all the testimony and what's called expert testimony. So you literally sit on a stand, you have your staff report. You have your staff report, and you testify that every analysis that's made in your staff report is the truth. It's what you've consulted with the engineers and the hydrologists and personally went out, and that you went through the Arizona Revised Statute, and you've also went through the water rules, and you also consulted with the Arizona Department of Environmental Equality. You need all of those checks off. Then you write the report, then you testify to it, and then lawyers from the corporation, from the other corporations come and they cross-examine you. Because most times, as a staffer, you should be there working on behalf of Arizona consumers. So they hire their lawyers to actually cross-examine you and your recommendations of what you're proposing happens in the either rate case or water case or energy case or solar case. So that's what happens.
How long did you hold that position?
I held that position, like if you see in all of my stuff, it talks my 10+ years in public policies, but doing that specific job, I did for 8 years.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
It appears that Arizona's heading for a major water shortage, and we have Rosemont Mine apparently is gonna be starting up near here, and I expect them to be using a great amount of water. So how would you address that?
He was talking about the water shortage. Then he said there appears to be a water shortage, and I would say, yes, we need to actually be very vigilant when it comes to water around the entire state. And you talked about the Rosemont mine that's starting and the use of water. This is where your corporation commissioners are critically important. One of the main things commissioners need to do is make any company that will be coming into Arizona, because they have to get what's called a certificate of convenience and necessity to actually start. It's called a CCNN, convenience of necessity, to actually get certified to be able to even provide service here in Arizona. When they apply, the cost of doing business has to be applied to those companies. When you charge companies more, they'll use less. The cost of doing business and using water for corporations in Arizona is so low, that's why they come. That's why they use and siphon all of our natural resources, because our neighbors right across the way, California, they're leaving there, coming here, because they have to pay the price to do business. And as a commissioner, that's what I will look at. Because you have staffers that every single day write those reports that say they should be paying the cost to do business. And this is how it's hurting our aquifers, but our commissioners are turning a blind eye, and not only turning a blind eye, when they're looking at the name and the interests of whoever has invested in them, and they're deciding to vote against our best interests. So as a commissioner, I would be into every company and every CCNN that comes into Arizona. I would look at the recommendations and find out how best, and is it in the best interest of us as Arizonans. So I'm consumer first with everything, and that's what needs to happen in Arizona. A consumer's first perspective. If you go on our Arizona Corporation Commission website, you'll see the mission has not changed. Even though the operation and corruption has happened, it is still to serve us, the consumers and the ratepayers, to provide us abundant clean water is one of the things that commissioners take an oath to do. So I'm willing to do what I will be tasked to do. Get in there and do everything I can for us, the consumers, to have a better Arizona, a more affordable Arizona when it comes to all utilities, and to work hard to give that opportunity to flourish back to Arizonans.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is this a full-time job, being a commissioner?
She asked, is this a full-time job being a commissioner? It is a full-time job. It is a full-time salaried position. The salary is 78, I think it's 78.5, or if I'm wrong, it's 79.5. There's some little increases that happens with the Corporation Commission, and it is a full-time job. You have a executive consultant and a policy advisor, and you go and you do that work. And for me, one of the things I love, because I've worked there many years, is actually being able to go there and talk to our consumer department and find out what people are interested in, what's happening, what hardships people are having, what successes we are having in Arizona, what things are being ignored, because it's there in black and white. And our commissioners that we have currently are not interested or invested in doing that. Yes, it's a full-time job. I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to put my skill set back to work. And one of the things that I say, I don't know if I've shared the story with the majority, is when I look at my students in Mesa Public Schools, I want my children to be able to go back to school and have the things they need when school starts. And it all starts when families are able to have lower energy rates. The high energy bills in August and September causes kids to come back to school unprepared. They don't have the clothes, they don't have the materials that they need, and our schools are asking for so much more these days because our schools aren't adequately funded. So it's an economic thing. And like I said, I can't tell you how much I would be honored to go back and help to give families what I was given when I came to Arizona. Because I came from another state, like a lot of people, and I found opportunity here. And I was able to do things that I really honestly didn't think I was able to do in my state because the opportunity wasn't there. So I moved from Louisiana to here, but I tell people I still live in the South, and people want me to say Southwest and all those things, but I don't, because when I look at where we are in education, we're not much different. We're still at the bottom. So that's why I'm so passionate about the economic part of it and bettering our lives and having better health indicators for all families that struggle. Yes, sir.
Two things. Do you regulate the solid waste industry? And would you say something about water conservation?
Okay. The question was, do we regulate the solid waste industry and also speak to water conservation? The first thing, solid waste, not in the form of like the way that we do it is when it comes to wastewater and purple piping. So I'm gonna kind of connect those by starting with purple piping, something that I talk about a lot professionally. The only thing that you may have heard before is gray water, but we tried to jazz it up and get into purple piping, which actually takes that wastewater and make it usable for golf courses and all of that. So I was on the ground floor of working some of that policy language when it comes to that, because in Arizona, we have to conserve. We need to conserve. When you look at Skull Valley and you look at, we're in second position when it comes to the Colorado River and not first position, which California is. Yeah, we definitely need to look at conservation. But I will always say every single time, some people, when they talk about conservation, they keep talking about the consumers. Yes, I think we need to change the mind of consumers, but we first have to start with what's happening with corporations. Because when it comes to conservation, once you start doing curtailment on people first, we never get to the consumers. We never get to the corporations. So I believe it needs to be flipped on its head. That we first look at the corporations that are paying pennies on a dollar to take our most valuable resource. So that's what I believe about conservation. When it comes to the golf courses and all of that, yes, I'm one of those people who believe in purple piping i.e. gray water and all of that, because it's grass, it's natural, it's outside. I would much more prefer that we have more water that's clean and ready to drink than using it to get the greenest grass possible on a golf course. So there's many different things we're doing, but for his irrigation, we're doing pretty well in irrigation in Arizona. We're finding that, especially with our institution of higher learning, we're doing more things that are conserving water than you may think. But that changes when it comes to corporate forms that are not native to Arizona. They come in with technology that doesn't have conservation, where our native Arizonans do everything that we can to conserve. So it actually shows you a difference in even in the same industries of how it's thought of. Because when you come from other places and they see how cheap Arizona natural resources are to siphon and use conservation, it's not even beneficial or worth it to them to try to conserve because we're not putting the mandates. And as your commissioner, that's one thing that I will do because I want the future to continue to be bright for all of us, and that brightness starts with clean air, clean water, and conservation so people can flourish.
Okay, any more questions? All right, thank you very
Thank you.
much.